I have the power. No. Hi. So my name is Marquise Moore. I'm a voiceover actor, obviously remote. I'll be moderating this panel with some great actors and actresses here. We'll start off with Eli and make our way around to introduce yourselves and what projects or stuff you did and how's your experience doing remote voiceover work.
Um, Hi everyone, I'm Eli. I've been at this for about 5 years. I'm on the East Coast, so I'm nowhere near a lot of the action, but it's been a real trip doing remote voice acting. I really love it. I've been working on. I do a lot of character work, so I haven't really had anything that I can talk about right now, but I'm in. Oh geez, what can I talk about? Oh. Oh man, I don't know. Nothing really recently, but soon to come, maybe. Hopefully.
Exciting stuff.
And one of you ladies can go afterwards.
Rock, paper, scissors. I can't
All
tell if I
right.
won.
I think you gotta go.
Okay, you shouldn't have picked paper. Hi, I'm Katy Johnson. I am also a remote voice actor that I started in theater actually, and then around 20 or oh gosh, yeah, I started in theater, and then when I was in probably high school, like 10 years ago, I had a Blue Yeti mic and a dream, and it was an interesting time on the internet, and I started doing some like little fan projects here and there, started working with more people, going to cons, and then eventually in I'd say 2018 is when things started picking up and I started doing remote voiceover more professionally. And yeah, some roles you might recognize me from are Kelly from Class of '09. I'm in all of the installments. And if you keep up with Class of '09 stuff, you might see more of me. I'm also Elise in the Gunvolt series, in Cardin CL and Gunvolt 3. I also do a lot of video games and stuff, and I've got a background in like kind of parody, funny, haha work. So, like Something Witty Entertainment, Team Four Star. Enjoyed working with them back in the day. And that's basically me. And I'm excited to talk about what I've done, but also kind of what I'm doing to help anyone get started.
Nice. Okay, so hi guys. My name is Meggie. Let's see. Oh my goodness. So starting out, I would say wanted to get into voiceover around 2018. And back then, I actually started recording on my phone, which can
Yes.
work for can work for a little bit, but probably not the best option for the long run. But let's see. I actually started out in Arizona. I was living in Arizona for about 22 years, and I just recently moved to Texas. So that's been great. I've been here for about a few months. Um, I also have a little bit of acting experience, so mostly choir, actually, believe it or not.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's see. Some characters you can hear me as of right now, that is not NDA, would probably be actually recently Fuchsia from Sternova. It's a new video game. AR214 from Honkai. Let's see. I know there's Dadia in Honor of Kings, and yeah, let's just leave it at that.
Woo.
Well, awesome. So it seems like we answered the first question, how long you guys been doing the voiceover work? And just to put myself there, I've been doing it since 2020. Uh, do more commercials and podcast work. Recent stuff I've done was World War Z Aftermath and Stargate Timekeepers. But let's jump on in. So obviously this is fun. And that's why people are here. So what are the benefits of being a remote voiceover actor? Obviously, you get to be at home. But what are also some of the drawbacks of being remote as well? So we can start with anybody, or do I have to pick people?
uh,
I
All
think
right.
I'll actually jump on it first.
All right, go for it.
Yeah, so Some obvious benefits to starting out remote is that you really get to train without, like, putting yourself in, like, really vulnerable positions when you're still kind of learning, right? So, there's the ability to kind of, like, hone your acting skills outside of a hub without the cost of living expenses, like, you can kinda be in a safe place to do that. You can start on really smaller projects from the safety of your home without a lot of those major expenses, except, you know, maybe you're investing in equipment. Another benefit is you kind of have to become somewhat of an engineer. That's also a downside, but you learn a lot about how this equipment works, about your space, and it can actually make you um, a lot, like, handier in terms of, like, being able to really, like, understand the process, and that can be really good. And then obviously, the benefit is that you have access to, a lot of really cool, like, indie projects and stuff. I'd say a drawback, however, is the types of work that you're wanting your career to be focused on, you have to get really specific with. And if you're wanting to work with really large companies, maybe your dream companies like Disney or things like that, there was a short period of time where it was way more accessible to work with those types of companies, even for video games. But I do think that a lot of those doors have closed more rapidly in the most recent um, years, and who knows the full direction it'll go. But yeah, bottom line is that if you have really specific goals for really specific companies, unfortunately, you might have to make a decision with where you're living if you want to be involved in certain projects. But if you want to be remote, there are a lot of opportunities that can make it possible to do this semi full time, depending on how diverse you make the work you do. Like, you can do commercial work with, like, a regional agent. Like, you can have access to a lot of stuff that pays, but it depends on, yeah, specific goals. How much money do you want to make? And yeah, that's what I'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And honestly, being an engineer, like, I think is a great skill to have as a voice actor
Mhm.
because, oh, there's just so many pros to, I guess, yeah, there are some drawbacks, especially with like having to put together your own studio, your own booth, like making sure that everything sounds good and that it's not picking up like a whole bunch of background noise or noisy neighbors or anything like that.
Mhm.
But no, being able knowing how to engineer is really helpful.
Yeah, definitely, especially, with remote voice. Fortunately, in a commercial space, you're not limited to if you need to be in a studio or not. Sometimes you
Mhm.
will, but most of the time, I've been fortunate to do everything from home, from clients from LA, here, even though I'm, like, right in the backyard of New York.
Mhm.
Everywhere. So it does have an advantage, but, what, Katie was saying is that some of the, bigger projects, they had, "Hey, you have to be LA talent only. Hey, you only have to be
Mhm.
Texas talent
Mm.
only." So it was more open in 2020 when COVID hit, but now slowly and stupidly, they're trying to make it back just in studio. But, anything can happen. There's still hybrids, there's still, production companies
Mhm.
that do hybrid work. So it's not the end or be
Mhm.
all of it. But, if, like I said, your dream goal is to work for these bigger companies, you may have to make the move to do so. But, like, again, the future is not set in stone, so anything can change.
And this
Mhm.
is where it's good to be prepared too and like have that home studio set up
Mhm.
because even if like there are some projects that are only like LA or Texas or New York or that kind of thing, there's always going to be projects or people out there that are looking for remote talent.
Mhm.
And if you don't have that stuff ready, then it's going to be a little difficult.
Yeah, like, one benefit of being a remote talent is accessibility is so key because the market is so saturated. And that is a good thing in terms of, like, the project market. The amount of things to audition for is, like, is wild, but it also means there's a lot of talent vying for that as well. So the more accessibility you have, locally, obviously that gives you access to a lot of stuff that other people don't have. But if your setup is really great, your materials are great, your demos are great, if everything is lining up and you can put yourself in as many pots as possible, that makes you viable for the most work. And so having that really good home studio setup gives you the access to the most potential clients. And it is kind of a numbers game at times. Like there's people that say, they've been working this for 10 years and they're like, I book one out of every like 100 auditions and that's a good rate. So it's like the more options that you have, the better. And being remote or having access to a really good remote studio makes you like, yeah, it puts you in a good spot.
And this actually
Mhm.
leads into our next question, which, before I do, Eli, do you have
Oh,
anything
did
to
Eli want
add?
to?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have
Oh,
anything to add, Eli?
I was just gonna say that a double-edged sword for kind of essentially running your own business. You are an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
You gain a lot of skills that you wouldn't think you would need in voiceover, like engineering,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
marketing, networking, so
Mm-hmm.
many things that are invaluable to learn as an independent business owner. Essentially, is what you are. But
Mm-hmm.
again, also it's a drawback because that's a lot of stuff that you would not have to worry about if you lived in a central hub and you were just, hey, I'm the voice actor going to the booth today. All right, so
And also at the end, I will post some places where you can find some remote work. There's some Twitter sites,
Mm-hmm.
some rate sites as well. So I'll post that near the end. But leading back into like being prepared and having like a good professional studio, it's actually a two-part question. Uh, do you need a professional home studio to start being a voice actor? And what are some of the necessary equipment people need to get started and get hired? And I know it's a long one. Are there any softwares you suggest for beginner voice actors interested in remote VA? I know it's a bigger question to answer.
To
Mm-hmm.
start, I would say definitely not.
Mm.
Um, I know when I was first starting, again, I was on my phone, I was doing it
Uh-huh.
under blankets.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Honestly, starting out, just do what you can do. If you can't afford a ton, just do your best to find a good place where it's not super noisy. Blankets and pillows, like, make your own little pillow
Mm-hmm.
fort. That always that can go a long way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, let's see.
Yeah, one thing I
Think
would add to that is when we started, like, because yeah, Maggie, or sorry, is it Meggie? Meggie.
Oh, yeah, it's Maggie technically, but, like,
Yes.
people call me whatever.
No, for sure. Well, Maggie, yeah, no, it was a lot different back then, and I feel like it was kind of a privilege to be able to kind of take your time because the I guess standards, so to speak, were a lot more Wild West. I do think nowadays, the best time to have gotten started was yesterday, right? But nowadays, going kind of that slow and steady method is good in terms of like, when you're honing your acting skills and prioritizing your acting skills, yeah, you should definitely take your time to really enhance those. But one thing that I wish I would have known that could have maybe gotten me a little further if I would have started in this way, um, definitely start with an XLR microphone, not a USB microphone, because you're going to end up in your home studio needing an XLR mic. And the sooner you can start understanding that technology and like an interface, preamp, that kind of stuff, you can start with pretty like low standard equipment, but understanding how it works. So, like, I, for example, use Pro Tools as my DAW, but that is, because I've reached a certain level. But Audacity is what I started out on. And you can get like a Scarlett Solo preamp with like, an AT2020 XLR microphone and a good XLR cable. And like Meggie was saying, have like priority put into like testing your space with like pillows, blankets,
Mhm.
foam, and you can reasonably get in and start practicing with equipment that's much better suited than a USB mic for maybe less than a $300-$400 investment. And it might sound like a lot of money, but unfortunately for voiceover, equipment is a thing. And as you go, you're going to start investing in better materials and, like,
Yeah.
for some context, like, this microphone was not less than $1,000, and everything that I have was hundreds of dollars over time that I would buy pieces one at a time, so it's like
Yeah.
$400 isn't a crazy number when it comes to, like, wanting to really start in that sense, and obviously, yeah, starting on your phone, doing that stuff, totally cool, but, like, the sooner you can start really learning this tech, I think the better, and I think,
Mhm.
spending 2 or $400, if you're really serious about that side of things, isn't, like, a bad idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely, 'cause, there was another panel yesterday I was doing, like, making a home studio for cheap. Uh,
Mhm.
I told it before, treat this journey like a role-playing game. You're not gonna start out with the best. You're gonna start off what you
Yeah.
have and work from there. Where I am right now, I am under my bed. As
Mm,
silly as that is, I am still under my bed, loft bed, and build
love
stuff
Wow.
one by
bed.
one. And you just
Nice.
have to be creative. You can do with blankets.
Mhm.
You can start in a
Mhm.
corner of your room and just isolate yourself and just experiment. And as you go along, then you build up. Yes,
Yeah.
not then, but USB mics now have actually gotten better as the terms of doing auditions. So it's
Mm,
okay to start out with that. And as you
mhm,
progress, then make the investments to an interface with the XLR
mm.
mic. So all
Yeah.
this takes time. So there's no need to feel
Yeah.
rushed. Uh, one thing I
Oh,
can
yeah, no.
say, there'll
No,
always
oh,
be
sorry.
auditions. Oh, it's fine. It's fine. Go for it.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say definitely don't go and, like, invest in, like, the most expensive equipment all at once
Mm-mm.
starting out because n I if anything, I mean, what I'm doing right now is I have an AT-2035. I've been recording with
Mhm.
that for, like, 5, 6 years,
Mhm.
and I recently upgraded from a Scarlett Focusrite to a Motu M2, which is so much better. But,
Mhm.
my goals I have, like, equipment that I wanna get in the future, but it's just, like, you don't wanna, like, throw all of your money in that like, all of that expensive stuff right away, because
Mhm.
a lot of the time, a huge part of it actually is your surrounding and your space, and, like, you can have the
Mhm.
most expensive equipment and, like, top quality stuff, but if your space and your, like, surroundings aren't quite up to snuff, then it's gonna downgrade the sound.
Yeah, another note that I like an asterisk that I'll add to my advice too is I think when it comes to really upgrading to the more expensive stuff, I think what those decisions can kind of come down to is once you start to get at a skill level where you're going to want to be in rooms where you're accessing bigger clients can sometimes have a bias towards the type of equipment they want to see on your website or they want to see in your booth. And even if you have a decent sound, there are clients that might be like, I don't recognize that microphone, or I don't want to work with this or that. But again, that's like a thing that comes later. But that's why I recommend, like, as early on as you can, understanding XLR tech so that when you make those upgrades, it's not like as intimidating, but I also
Mhm.
came from, like, a place where I started with, like, a Blue Yeti USB and a laptop, and it took me a long time to upgrade from that because I ran into an audio engineer that became, like, my best friend, and they helped me slowly adjust, and once I started using, like, the Scarlett Solo and the XLR stuff, I was like, "Wait, this is so different," and I feel like if I would have started out there, I could have skipped a learning step and saved myself some time for a pretty low cost entrance. But yeah, 100% the really, really good stuff, don't get that early because like a really good preamp or interface can be again close to like $1,000 if you're wanting the really studio quality stuff. And
Yeah.
like a Newman microphone or like a frickin' oh, there's the really expensive ones that, like, the studios really like. Those are not worth getting in your first year, like,
Yeah, no,
full stop.
no U87s because remember, as much as you want a
Mm-mm.
mic, your space
Yeah,
is 100% more
your
important than a
space,
mic.
yeah.
If you have a
Yeah.
fancy mic and your space is gonna
Feels
pick up
so
everything,
garbage. Take
Mhm.
it from me.
everything.
Yeah.
So, before I move to the next question, anything kinda we didn't get too much for Eli. Anything you wanna add with that?
I was just gonna say I started on a blue snowball in my
Mhm.
my closet, and yeah, space is super important because
Mhm.
I think it's all about managing expectations. I mean, I started on USB mic. I instantly fell in love with voice acting, and I was like, no, I want to go ahead and immediately upgrade to an XLR. I had
Mhm.
a Behringer like karaoke like mixer, and I
Heck
didn't know what I was doing. I
yes.
was
Yeah.
just going all over the place. I had an AT-2032 that my friend was like, I
Mhm.
don't want to sing anymore. Here, have this. I was using like a music mic, and it
Mhm.
it that did help starting off XLR very early. But again, I think everyone's different. You may get into this and you may go, I'm not sure if this is for me, and you don't want to. It's all about risk rewards. So in the end,
Yeah.
it's kind of up to what you think you're going to get out of this. And if you don't know,
Mhm.
you might not want to spend as much. If you're okay sinking in a little bit more, I think
Yeah.
it's just two different starting points, I
Mhm.
think. But yeah, I cannot stress how important a good sound treatment is, because I bought my
Yeah.
Neumann and my booth was not up to snuff at the time, and I immediately was like, all right, well, I got to do an upgrade
Mhm.
then.
100%.
And Christmas is around the corner, guys. Wink, wink. So,
And it's a tax write-off. Taxes are a whole other conversation.
oh, that is a whole new,
True.
That's
that's a whole
a
new, panel.
honestly,
Or
though,
Should be a
it's a
class
thing.
on that.
so equipment's important, sound space is important. That is great,
Yep.
but none of that means diddly without actually knowing how to act. So besides equipment,
Mhm.
what else do you suggest remote VAs invest into? Training, classes, etc. What would be the best route or suggested route they should go?
I, I'm going to jump in real quick and say, I know everyone's first going to say, well, voice acting classes, but I got into this with zero experience acting. So
Mhm.
acting classes in general, and you can find local ones near you. You
Mhm.
can join an improv group, theater group, anything will help. Any sort of
Mhm.
experience. If you have no experience acting, acting classes are great.
Mhm.
That being said, there are so many voice acting classes, so many instructors that are great. I would just say make sure you vet who you're taking classes with. There's nothing wrong with newcomers teaching, and some of the veterans, in my opinion, maybe you shouldn't be teaching some of these classes. But I
Oh,
think
yeah,
Mhm.
vetting your
always
instructors
do
is
your
important.
research. Yeah,
Mhm.
always do your research for sure.
If,
Yeah.
research is important, especially when you're starting out. Acting obviously is important. Big A, small v. It's about how you emote.
Mhm.
Because once you do that, it doesn't matter what voice you use. Natural voice is the big thing, what your normal voice is. No matter how many character voices you do, it's not going to be fun when you only can do like a couple of phrases.
Mhm.
Uh,
Like, yeah, one thing I would say, diversify what you study and diversify what you're consuming. So it's like it's entertainment, right? So if you're only watching anime, for example, you might get really stuck in a certain type of performance that looks good to you. And
Mhm.
that's totally cool. There are so many quality dubs, shout out Don to Don, like nowadays,
Yeah.
especially. And it's and dubbing work is incredible. That's a very technical skill that requires, like when it comes to lip syncing and stuff, a whole other ballgame. But
Mhm.
prelay, for example, or just like theatrical acting or more dramatic acting. Like there's so many styles. And I think one place you can start if you're looking like at if I don't want to spend any money, where's some places I can start? The type of media you consume, really diversifying it and studying the types of performances you see. And then I come from a theater background, and I personally think local theater is so important to the acting community, and it's totally free. It just takes your time to audition and participate and learn from local like people that might
Mhm.
also teach classes, but I always loved learning by trial by fire, like being thrown in and really seeing how these people are doing it. And like from there, you kind of begin to join in on the dance. And those are just really accessible ways that I think, but also there's so many like things like this, like free things online where you can watch people. There's also really low budget like group classes online for voiceover that are Zoom calls where it's maybe like $20 and you can like do a sit-in to just see people performing. And then a final one that I would say is just reading out loud. Like, I
Oh,
did
yeah.
speech and debate for years, and one thing that really helped me with was just speech, like, in general. So even if you just have a book, if you just have a book and you're just reading it, just getting that enunciation, that alliteration, that whatever gets your mouth moving so that when you're doing cold reads, you're not mush mouthing, I think
Mhm.
that's a really important skill that very low, like, barrier to entry can get you started. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
to add on to that, because I'm also a theater background, it's great because it gets you where you need to be as far as speech and cold reading. Another thing is learning mic technique as well, because
Mhm.
you're just gonna be doing a lot of stuff. You always hear like the hang loose sign, where you're gonna do, how you projecting your words, how not to blow out your voice when you are yelling and projecting. There's
Mhm.
so many different techniques and courses, which I'll try to pin at the end. Who I could recommend, or if any you guys could recommend how to do these simple mic techniques that will
Mm.
not only help you, but prevent your voice for, crapping out. Obviously, water, no high
Mhm.
sugars, especially the day before. It's just a
Uh-huh.
lot of little
Yeah.
things. Um, but with that, hey, we got our booth, we got our mic, we are taking classes, we're ready to go. I'm ready to go in the world. How do I find these remote voiceover jobs? That's the next big question. Where do I go? Eli, where can I find this stuff? Help
Um,
me.
I I started on Casting Call Club. I'm not sure
Mhm.
if that's so good anymore because I haven't really used that as much. But I find most of
Mm.
my jobs on social media, and uh, previous clients and cold calling. Though I would not recommend cold calling right off the bat. I would wait till you kind of have your foot in the industry before you do something like that because you want to make sure you're
Yeah.
putting your best foot forward. But yeah, social media is where I get most of mine. And there's also pay to play sites, like
Oh,
Voices
yeah.
123, voices.com. I don't use those anymore, but maybe someone else could speak to that. Backstage too, I think is a good one.
Yeah, as far as finding at least stuff for me, there's a Twitter link. I keep forgetting the name. I think they
Oh,
retweet it. It's like VT
V
recat.
is it VAC, the, like, paid casting call
Mm.
Yeah,
retweets,
it's that
or
one, and it's another
Yeah.
one that Risa does as well, like through
Oh,
Twitter. Like,
I think that is the
Mhm.
one.
it has the one. Okay, so
Yeah.
I'll find it, but, I'll post it later, but, most of what I found as far as remote work was through, Twitter,
Yeah.
through
Yeah,
Instagram.
Mhm.
VT casting, yeah.
Um, a lot of believe it or not, most of these jobs I have found were through these sites and social medias because people's like, "Hey, casting call, casting call." And some of them are paid, some of them are not paid, which I'll get into. There's nothing wrong with doing unpaid work, as long as they're upfront about this being unpaid work, and if that's something you like to do, go
Mhm.
for it because this will lead you to other stuff. It's like, "Hey, I like that voice. I want them in this my next project. Is it paid? Yeah, we pay you hundreds of thousands of dollars." Am I exaggerating? Yes,
I
but it is
wish.
possible. But, don't don't be just stuck in an narrow. There's so much stuff out there. There was a while
Mhm.
where TikTok was doing stuff like this. Some, but, like, some of them were actually legit. I think there's one going on right now through TikTok. But, you'll be amazed how social media has evolved as far as people finding stuff, how casting directors will reach out. LinkedIn is another one you can find, reaching out to other stuff, and that's when practicing of cold, reading or what is it called? Was it cold calling? I'm sorry, got
Yeah,
the
cold calling.
terminology. Cold calling is like reaching out. Hey, my name is Marquise. I'm a voice after work. I've seen you working on this production. I'd love to know more. Short and simple. It takes a little practice because most of the time you're not gonna hear back from them, but
Mhm.
sometimes you may hear back from them, and that can lead to more
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, I think before you start doing reach out like that,
Mm.
like, I think everything that they said is 100% yeah, like, that's the advice I would give. To add to it, I think doing, like, early on, a lot of the free work or, like, the super low budget stuff is really good, not just for, like, "Oh, I'm getting, like, experience and stuff on, like, a little resume," although a lot of it might not be resume, uh, ready, but I think establishing what, like, your voice print is, what types of characters you enjoy playing, figuring out where you fit in the market, what's getting you cast is going to be a really important step to making your demos. And your
Mhm.
demos are going to be what get you work a lot of the time because yes, auditioning is important, and especially, like, for most projects, they're gonna want you to audition, but a lot of the time, you don't get into those rooms to audition without proper marketing materials, and I don't think you should rush making a demo until you kind of understand your voice and understand
Yeah.
your place in the market, and so, yeah, that's where I would definitely suggest starting on those little free projects, starting on those things that get you used to performing, and you'll see, oh, what am I getting hired for? What are the things that make me stand out? What do I enjoy doing? And then when you have those, sometimes you just get cast on your demo because, like, that's definitely happened to me where somebody heard my stuff and they're like, hey, I like voice number two. Do that for this. And I'm like, bet. Like,
Yeah,
it's
fast food restaurant, number 3,
Kind
please.
of,
Yep.
kind of, your materials really speak for you, and then they can be the gateway to getting into the room to really show them what you got, but don't
And
make them too early.
yeah, and just to tag
Yeah.
on, the demo is not the end all be all, career stopper. You can get
Yeah.
work
Mhm.
without demos, but
Yeah,
being that
like early
said,
stuff,
yeah,
yeah.
Mhm.
but eventually you do want to, and a good engineer will vet you to say like, "Hey, you're not ready for one," and don't take that as an
Mhm,
insult.
Yeah.
mhm,
They wanna make sure that they're putting your best foot forward, and
mhm.
Be
because again.
aware. Oh,
Oh, yeah, go
sorry.
for it. Oh, no, go for it, go for it.
Be be careful of some, demo producers that will, like, try and just make sure this is where doing your research is super important because there are some people out there, unfortunately, that will try and, like, push you to make a demo before you're ready, and they'll
Mhm.
make it like, it'll be super expensive, and they'll have you, like, spend all your money before you're ready, and then it just doesn't sound as good as it could. So, definitely be careful of that.
Yeah, and I just wanna say too that, like, I totally feel for anybody that's very confused about the demo question because there are a lot of exceptions to what should be the rule that have made it very tricky, like, nowadays. Like, I know actors that have gone to have very successful careers that produced their own demo very early on in their career, but they also had, like, a music background, and there were a lot of things that led to it, but it worked for them, and I know people that really started in, like, a class and they took the class through and then, maybe someone like Richard Orvitz made their helped produce their demo, and that's an example of really good vetting. But sometimes those pay for classes and at the end they make you a demo thing are not probably the right avenue, which comes back to
Yeah.
vetting. Like it's so tricky because there are a lot of things that do technically work, but it's a gamble unless you've really put in the time to understand the market and to understand how you perform your voice and really get all these little intricacies down before you start it. So it's like there's not one correct answer, I guess is what I'm trying to say, which can be very frustrating when it's something
Mhm.
as important as a demo.
Welcome to the world of voiceover.
Honestly, though, it's really
Yeah. But, with that, once you find the work, how ugh, I can't say words. Have you discovered more studios as a remote voice actor, especially during COVID? Are there places I can't read this question.
You got this.
I know, I
Woo.
hate see, co-reading is important. This is the stuff we talk about. I suck at it. But I've gotten better. Alright, so have you discovered more studios are remote friendly after COVID? And are more places requiring in-studio sessions? I know we touched on this a little bit earlier, but, has it gotten better? Has it gotten worse? Like, what experiences have you, faced?
Um, I think in one regard, there have been a lot of studios, like, especially during COVID, that have opened up and are starting to look for more, like, a remote team, more remote talent, but I think, it's kind of can be, like, 50-50 sometimes, like, sometimes, you have studios that are going back to, like, locals only, and then you've got, people that are trying to branch out more. Like, I believe, a lot of indie shows nowadays are a lot of remote talent. Um, even Nokotan, like my dear friend Nokotan, that was my first anime, and that was all remote cast. And a huge part of it is just being in the right place at the right time and just I guess knowing where to find those opportunities and putting yourself out there. I don't know if that I don't know if that was a
Uh,
No, I
that's
think you nailed it.
No,
Yeah.
it's nailed. For me, most of the stuff, because I started around COVID, was that most of my work is in the commercial space, so like radio, sometimes TV. And what I experienced, most of them are remote friendly, if more
Mhm.
encouraging. Because like, hey, you're already at home, as long as your quality is great, you could do it from your booth, which it's been wonderful. Like I personally, during my 4 years and a short time, and I'm still learning. I have yet to be in an actual studio, which I would love to. But at the same time, it's like, you know what? I don't have to change my pants. I can do everything at home, be done, and back to sleep. So yeah, there
Mhm.
are some advantages, but as some of you pointed out, some of them do require in
Mhm.
studio or local talent, which is good, but at the same time, it does, or at least in my opinion, it does restrict their reach or talent pool for other actors who are in not major cities. So
Mhm.
the not New York's, not the Texases, not the LAs. So I feel that they should have a bigger reach, especially when it was, like, during the height of COVID. Like, there was so much talent discovered during that time, and them just closing the borders, quote, unquote, is just hindering them, in my opinion.
Yeah, it definitely can.
Yeah, I think, to that point too, when it comes to, like, there are specific studios that as much as we wish they would keep that, like, lane really open, you have to really get specific with your goals, and if your goal is to work with a really specific studio working on really big projects, there might be doors that are only open to you if you're a really big select name talent that has already been, like, decades in, and they're not gonna prioritize maybe a newer voice. But a positive is, yes, those old guard studios exist, and they do have, really good projects that look really fun. But a benefit of this new remote world is that so many indie studios are popping up. So much indie work is popping up and happening that's creating this new kind of environment of online work. Like, you see what's happened with Digital Circus. You see what's happening
Mhm.
with a lot of these indie animation, like prelay projects that are starting up and really wanting to focus on diversity and talent in terms of like where they get their talent, what can we bring in that's fun and exciting, that's really immersed in this new world of entertaining. And so I think that your opportunities are not limited unless you have a limited vision. And if your limited vision, and nothing wrong with that, if you have a really specific goal, get it. But like, open up, I guess, your mind to like, things are constantly upgrading, and just
Yeah.
because you're not a part of like, oh, I want to be in Genshin, but a long time ago, like 10 years ago, there were people getting auditions for like, oh, what's this Gravity Falls thing? Ugh, I don't know. Like, and then that took off. Yes, that was network, but like, you never know if the little thing you're reading for is gonna be like Hell of a Boss or Has Been Hotel. Like, people reading for that probably didn't know it was going to be what it is now. And
Yeah.
yeah, so keep your mind open.
Especially oh, yeah, yeah, no, especially since a lot of projects nowadays are like will use code names
Mhm.
in their auditions, and so sometimes you don't even know, like, what you're auditioning for most of the time until
Mhm.
after.
Really good code names, because 'cause I'm very sleuth of like, "Ooh, what's this?" And I can't find it. And, like, and to tag on to that, if your main goal is just one genre voice acting, which is totally fine,
Mhm.
I implore you to expand. Like, my original thing, I just wanna do animation. That's just me. I just wanna
Mhm.
make silly noises in a microphone. But that led me to commercial work, which I was like, why I wanna do it?" I'm like, "Oh, this is fun." Alright, I wanna go back to
Mhm.
animation. That led me to podcasts. I love podcasts. It's so great.
Mhm.
And it's like, it jumped me from this to that, and it's like, wow, voiceover is more than just one narrow path. So, like, I implore you
Yeah.
just to expand. You might find something else you love in the field and more
Mhm.
opportunity, more work for you guys.
Mhm.
They're out there, you just gotta find them. That's really
Yep.
it. They're popping
Yeah.
up.
Research.
Yeah.
And
Research,
I dare
find
say there's more remote opportunities now than in studio if you just count the bulk of what is online. There's
Yeah.
like the studios might have the big juicy contracts, but in terms of like work that's out there, you'd really be surprised.
there will always be work and there will always be auditions. So I'll say this again. Even
Mhm.
if you feel like you're missing out the audition of the lifetime, there's something to be better around the corner. So just remember that there will always be an audition for something. So
And
Mhm.
there's
never
something really
discourage.
rewarding about growing with a project, especially
Yeah.
I mean, I do a lot of indie projects, so
Yeah.
Right. So for next one, you got your studios, you're finding your work, you're about to submit your auditions. Now's the time you think, do you need to edit your recordings yourself? If so, how long does it take you and how do you ensure that the same audio quality and etc. are fit for those studios? So to sum it, should I edit my audio before setting it up?
Well, that kinda depends on the director, I would say, or the client, because I think a lot of especially for auditions and even well, auditions can differ sometimes, like, sometimes you can, edit out the background noise a little bit, but for the majority, you wanna send in the audio raw, like, just as it is without adding any effects to it or anything, because people, especially remote actors, they wanna see how like, what your space sounds like and what your equipment sounds like and what you sound like in that space without any effects or anything on it.
Mm,
So I think it depends on the person.
Yeah,
100%.
like when you're setting up your space, like the question you're kind of trying to answer is how can I make my audio the most desirable by the most amount of clients? Because there will always be a client. You could have the most beautiful foam setup, the most luxurious microphone, and there will be a client that's like, "Yeah, I don't like that noise I hear. What noise? I don't like it. Fix it." It's like, what noise?" Like, there will be clients that will have a problem with your setup no matter what you do, so it's like you have to set yourself up for the most potential of having good audio, knowing that sometimes it's based on trivial things that don't, like yeah, like, that they might just hear something and it's a preference. But, yeah, no, it's definitely a whole thing. And then yeah, with editing for sure. There's, the two types of editing, right? There's the editing for, your space, like your sound for trying to get like, oh, I need to get this plosive out. I need to get this. But one thing that I will say is when it comes to performance editing, so it's like, oh, I'm going to Franken edit this take. I recorded 12 takes of this line and I'm going to put the first two words of this one, the last two words of that one, like da da da. I would recommend against that if you can get yourself to a place where you're reading the line and you like the way you delivered it. And maybe you only have to record like two or three takes and then maybe you pick. But, like, it gets to a point where if you're relying too heavily on Franken editing, it can kind of go into, like I don't know, it can kinda mess with you, or maybe it's just me, but, like, it's definitely a thing where I would advise
Yeah.
against the really hardcore Franken editing of your takes.
If you have a
Like,
Makes
some
live
people oh, sorry. You go, you go.
you got Eli.
I was gonna say if you're doing a live, recording, then you don't really have that, I mean, that's on them if they wanna do it, and most of the time, they'll be like, "No, just hit it again. Just do it right this time."
Yeah.
Yeah.
That being said, though, if you do audiobooks, you will have to edit all of your stuff. I hate audiobooks.
True.
I will never do them again. Not saying you shouldn't do them,
Yeah! I
They
will
but
not.
they are a
you
journey.
will have to master and edit your whole thing for the most part.
Mhm.
I'm sure there's
Yeah.
exceptions to the rule, but
And editing's the part that usually takes the longest, like, more than the recording. It just
Yeah.
depends, but for the most part.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and touch that. Yeah, anything you send out, you want to hit the same quality to the client. Now, if you're self-editing yourself for the project, which comes time to time, totally fine. But you want to be aware of something called over processing your audio.
Mhm.
It can come to a point where it doesn't even sound like you, which is why you should at least learn the basic of whatever DAW you're using. I use Adobe. I know it works. But if you do not know what any of these stuff does or how it does it, don't use it for your audition. Take some time, play around with it to
Mhm.
get an idea and a sense. Talk to an engineer, a friend who's an engineer. But the best rule of thumb is if you don't know what it does, just don't touch it. Send it
Mhm.
out. Don't take out your breaths. That breathes human into character. I know everyone's like, I don't want to hear my doing that, but that adds so much to an audition. You want to be mindful of clicks and stuff like that with water, but honestly, don't stress about it. As long as it's not too insane, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
So, which leads to a totally different question. And I know some of us has dealt with this. Have you ever gotten any pushback from a client when you mentioned that you were a remote voice actor? If so, what were you able to successfully negotiate or not? And what if you were successful, what did they say?
Hmm. For me, it's never really been with the client. It's been more with like applying to certain agencies. Because I know there's been some agencies that are like, oh, like, thank you so much for applying. But unfortunately, we're only taking um, voice actors in this part or like in LA or Texas or like specific areas. And so for
Mhm.
me, I feel like that's the only real place where I've gotten kind of pushback. But sometimes there has been people that have been like, "Check up with us later," or like, "Check up with us in a year or so, and we'll see, like, how the situation looks." But,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, with clients, I maybe it's just my experience, but you're not really gonna hear feedback from, like, clients. Like, usually they get your audition or they get your whatever, and if they don't want you, you're kind of not they don't reach back out. Like, it's kind of a thing where if you got the audition and you send it in, then that means obviously they gave you the audition, so they're considering you. But they're not gonna give you, like, a
Mhm,
lot of feedback, or they're not gonna tell you why they rejected your audition. So it's a good sign if you're getting auditions at all because that means that they obviously are accepting remote. But, yeah, you're not gonna have a lot of back and forth with clients unless, I guess, it's a really small indie studio and y'all are on talking terms, but big studios, I don't think typically are are having that conversation with you. It's mostly agents.
mhm.
I think you covered before because I realized we have 10 minutes, so we can go to
Oh,
some questions from the
we're
cast.
zooming.
But anything else you want to add onto that, Eli? Or
Nah, if it happens, it all happens off screen, and I don't have to worry about it.
Mhm. Just send and forget.
Yeah.
all right, cool. So our first question comes from, and I'm sorry if I'm butchering it. It's from Mariko. I'm sorry if I butchered your name. What were the steps to becoming a full time or professional VA with many roles for a beginner?
Hmm. I guess I would just say, auditioning, like, finding, um and auditioning for as, like, many projects as you can and building that resume and taking classes and workshops, slowly upgrading your equipment when you feel ready.
Mhm.
Um, I was doing yeah, I started voiceover in about 2018, and I don't think I really started pursuing it full time until maybe, like, 2022. So it can take
Yeah.
time.
And I also wanna add too that, like, the idea that all of the voice actors that you can think of that are, like, the most successful are doing it full time. Supplementary income has kind of been a thing that has existed in the acting world for many years, and even a lot of, like, the big names that you can think of. Sometimes they're doing teaching, sometimes they're doing directing, sometimes they're doing writing, like, on the scripts for the shows. Like, there's a lot of gig economy stuff that goes into being an actor, and it is possible to make your income fully from just acting, but just to, like, get expectations a little more, I think, realistic, it's totally cool if you have, like, a day job or if you have freelance
Mhm.
work that you do or other stuff adjacent to creativity or not adjacent, and that's like okay and doesn't make you less of an actor if you have to pay your bills. Like so
Yeah.
many actors are directing, writing, teaching, or maybe they work a shift at Target. Like it's literally like there's no shame in it as long as you are studying the craft and improving and performing, you are an actor. And don't feel too much pressure to be full time, even if like it feels like, oh, I'm not legitimate unless it's like, no, like
Yeah.
if you're good at what you do, you're putting in the work and you're taking care of yourself and yours and paying your bills, no one can say shit.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Once you get that money, no one can say any stuff. Trust me, you're gonna have family members who be like, "Oh, what you
Exactly.
do?" "I'm in acting." "Haha, you act?" I'm like, "Yeah, I just paid off my student loans." Like, "What?" "Yeah."
Yeah, what are you
Oh,
doing? Like
yeah.
Alright. Alright, so, next question we got is, what are some good websites? I'm assuming that's for auditions you guys can recommend. I will post
Yeah.
those on the bottom, so if you guys, panelists have anything to add, I'll try to make a list, just to post at the end of the chat, so I got you, Tiger. So the next one would be here's a good one. What is the best ways to deal with background noise without resorting to using sound foam on the walls in your room? Uh, I would say if you don't want to use sound foam, uh, any exorbitant material, so clothes, backpacks,
Yeah.
rugs,
Mm.
anything you have at home.
Blankets.
Remember,
Mattresses are
mat-
True.
incredible.
mat-
Dude, I knew somebody that had like 4 mattresses around them and it was like they sounded really good. Just you can get creative.
remember, it don't care how ugly, quote unquote, your booth is, as long as the sound
Yeah.
is great.
Mhm.
It could be a
Yeah.
foamy rock for all we care. Actually, I
Oh,
should do
yeah.
that and start marketing that. But,
Honestly.
as long as you get the sound quality, it doesn't matter how it looks. You just gotta experiment, take your time with it, and once you find
Mhm.
that sound you want, run with it, and then worry
Especially
about buying
early
the
on,
expensive
yeah.
stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
worry
Yeah.
Yeah.
about that stuff. We got 5 minutes. Oh, here's a good one, from Alex. What are your favorite projects you all worked on?
Mm.
I'm assuming,
Ooh.
NDA free, of course, these projects.
Hmm.
I'd say Elise from Gunvolt because I did it remotely with the client in Japan and having them all in the Zoom call and the Japanese client saying something to the translator and being like, "Oh, they sound so awesome," and me hearing that from the translator and I was like, "Oh my gosh, yes!" Like that was
Aw.
kind of a highlight of my career was impressing the Japanese client in the call.
I think my favorite was Soma from Fire in His Fingertips. That was my first anime role, first ADR role, and I got in there and they were like, "All right, you done this before, right?" I'm like, no, you didn't know that." I even said in the email it was my first time, and they were like, But
Oh,
I
no.
so much fun. I love
Mhm.
ADR is amazing.
Mhm.
Yeah. I would say probably AR214 from Honkai, just because, I just love the community. Like, I love the Honkai community. Everybody is just so sweet and so nice, and she's such a cool character. And I think she's probably one of my favorites.
For me, I'm kinda torn between 2. One was an animation I did for Bleacher Report. It was, what if scenarios that these 2 basketball players are playing against each other, and I got to play the, very eccentric sports announcer that's just yelling like it's NBA Jam. I love that so much, and the recent one I did was for, World War Z Aftermath that came out recently. First console game, it was amazing. Just hearing myself on that was just surreal. It's like, "Is that me?" doing that, so it was great, and other stuff I wish I can talk about because NDA.
NDA.
Yeah.
NDA.
NDA.
NDA is your will be your best friend, trust me, when y'all and I guarantee you, when you all start getting projects and then you can't talk about because of the non-disclosure agreement, you're gonna feel like you're gonna burst because, like, "I need to tell somebody."
Uh,
Alright. We got one for purple. Um, are there any dream jobs, like, projects you wish you can do? So, like, what is the one dream job you guys want to do in your careers?
Ranma
Hmm.
one half. Yeah. Anything Ranma one half. Anything Rumiko Takahashi that she made. But with the Ranma remake happening recently, and I'm sure there's gonna be more, that would just be a dream to be involved with my favorite 80s show of all time. Yeah, in any
Mm.
way.
Goodness. I used to have, like, specific projects that I wanted to be a part of, but now I'm like, literally anything.
Mhm.
Like, I just wanna keep voice acting.
That's the dream. For me, and it's gonna sound old guard, I wanna do Bugs and Daffy for Looney Tunes. That is the reason
Ooh.
Yes!
why
You're
I
coming
got
for
into
Eric
voice acting.
Bauza, huh?
I don't want Here's the thing, I don't wanna take anyone's job. I wanna make that perfectly clear. There is multiple Bugs, there's Billy West, there's Eric Bowser,
Mhm.
there's Jeff, there's multiple Bugs and Daffys. I just
It's
wanna be
true.
a part of that crew. Just to
Yeah,
do something
yeah.
like that, I wanna say, like, die happy, but I think it would just be a dream
Do you
for
like
me.
Aw.
Daffy or Bugs more? I love Daffy.
I love Bugs because he's more like
Mhm.
me. I love Daffy, voicing Daffy because he's just silly, because he can either be, like,
Mhm.
cynical or sarcastic. It's like,
He's
you
so
can go anywhere with
unhinged.
Daffy. And, what about you, Eli?
Oh, it's 100% JoJo's. I have like
Oh.
wait, I'm not okay when it comes to JoJo's.
Mhm. Heck yeah.
Alright.
Pokemon's a cool one too.
And, ooh, I didn't realize we skipped another Purple's question. This is for, Katie. What was it like
Oh.
to voice in Class '09?
Oh, man. I will say the dialogue in Class of '09 is the wildest stuff I've ever read, and I recommend it if you like anime girls with South Park writing, I think is a good
Ooh.
way to really tie that game together, and I came from a background of, like, abridging and parody work where we would say ridiculous things. Class of '09 wins. It was a great time. I love good writing. It's really good and dark and funny as hell, so it's a good time.
Thank
Have a good one,
you.
folks.
Alright,
Great. Thanks for
Take it
coming.
easy,
goodbye!
y'all.
Bye.